And I would like to invite the Honorable Bill de Blasio, the Mayor of the City of New York, to say a few words.
Thank you, Monsignor. Today, New York City is heartbroken. We have a tremendous sense of loss in our community. A city so large, and yet we're all united right now in profound grief because we have lost such a good man. With every passing day, all of us have come to know Brian, come to understand how exceptional he truly was, how much goodness, how much heart, how special a person who we miss so deeply now. Our hearts go out to the Simonsen family. We can only begin to imagine your pain, but we feel at one with you. And we all should feel at one with our men and women in uniform who are suffering this loss so deeply and so personally right now as well. To Linda, your family has suffered so much for so long. As a parent, can only begin to imagine, but I want you to know we all offer you our love, everyone here. Consider us all your children, your brothers, your sisters, together with you. To Leanne, losing the one you love after so short a time, that pain is so cruel, but your love was so beautiful, and it will be eternal. To his grandfather, Vernon, we honor you. To the whole family, we grieve with you, and most importantly, we will always be with you, because that is our tradition. That is the tradition of the NYPD. It is one everyone can see and feel and understand the power of. We leave no family alone. We are always there for them. This tragedy has brought forward an idea that we all need to understand better. And it allows us to see the measure of a man, what Brian was willing to do for his fellow New Yorkers, what he was willing to do because he believed he was there to protect. What a measure of a man who approaches danger fearlessly, something that few can truly do. But it's what our officers do every single day. And when they suffer a loss, it is so personal. Every officer and their families feel this loss with the Simonsen family, but it's personal, it's direct, it's immediate. And we as New Yorkers need to understand that. We understand that feeling that by doing what is right, by going to the danger in the name of others, the pain that comes with the loss is so real, so personal, so deep. And I ask every New Yorker, when you see a police officer today, please offer them condolences as you would to someone who has lost a family member, because in fact they have. We think about Brian's life and we should see so many positive, powerful things in his life because he lived right. He wanted to be a police officer from an early age. He realized his dream. He wanted to protect others, and he did. He wanted to provide care and comfort. He did even before he was an officer, helping troubled young people here on Long Island. And he brought that passion and that belief to the 102 precinct and made it a better place. Amazingly, for 19 years, his commitment caused him to drive 70 miles each way to work and home. And he was devoted to his precinct, to his brothers and sisters in blue, and to everyone he served in the community. He was devoted. It was never just a job for him. It was something much more powerful. One of his partners recalled one night responding to a job, a woman who had fought off an intruder in her home. His partner said that Brian tried to soothe her, tried to let her know it would be okay. And she ended up crying on his shoulder so long that her tears soaked through Brian's shirt. She was in a moment of profound distress, and he was exactly the kind of person who needed to arrive to make things right. And he felt that same responsibility to his fellow officers, serving them as a union delegate. And we all know that he could have taken that fateful day off, but that's not the human being he was. He felt his neighborhood needed him. The neighborhood he served, he felt he had to be there. If you talk to people in Richmond Hill, they will tell you they knew Brian, the guy who went to the bodega or the pizzeria, stop in, talk to a business owner, ask him if you wanted a cup of coffee. One community resident said something powerful. He said Brian had a human instinct. He had the ability to bring our officers and our community closer and closer together. And this resident said, you viewed him as a friend. Scripture tells us, greater love hath no one than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. That's what Brian did. He saw the residents of the community as his friends. He had to protect them in that moment of fear and doubt when people did not know if lives would be lost. Brian came forward because he knew the neighborhood he was protecting, he felt was his own. And where he lived here in Long Island, in that neighborhood as well, everyone felt so close to Brian. His warmth, his laugh, the name Smiles. No one felt like a stranger if they spent time around Brian. And he loved life in so many ways. He loved his family deeply. He loved backyard barbecues and pool parties. He brought people together. And he tried to help people to see what he thought was the right way, including when it came to sports. Devoted Giants fan, and someone who did something that we can only say is a great mark of character. He tried to convince more people to become Mets fans. Neighborhood kids would call him Uncle Brian. He'd hang out with them. He'd joke around with them. He played wiffle ball with the kids. They needed a baseball mitt. You wouldn't be surprised if Brian would go get one for them. He just cared so much. And I hope all New Yorkers and all Americans look at this example, the fullest, truest example of all the goodness that a police officer can bring to a community, on the job and off the job. And even after this tragedy, Brian kept giving back, still taking care of others. He wanted to be an organ donor to make sure he could continue to save lives, and he did. I think we can all agree we have lost one of our very best. And we've been given an example to live up to. So to the family, I say on behalf of 8.6 million New Yorkers, thank you for bringing Brian to us. Thank you for all you did to love and support him. Thank you for making him the man he was. And we were all better and are all better because Brian walked among us. We will never forget him. God bless you all.
I now invite the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, the Honorable James O'Neill.
On behalf of the entire New York City Police Department, let me extend to each of you here in this beautiful church, to the thousands of police officers from around New York, around our nation, and around the world who are standing outside in the freezing cold, our thanks for joining with us this morning in our hour of grief. Thank you to the many political leaders who are here, the community leaders who stand with us every day, and the clergy who are here helping us through this tragic time. Why do people call 911? They call 911 when someone is in a state of crisis. There's something going on that they're not equipped to handle themselves. It requires a very specific type of person to respond to that call. Someone like NYPD Detective Brian Simonsen. It takes a cop like Brian who believed in being part of something larger than himself. Without the police, there would be anarchy. It's because police officers confront the evil that exists that life is so much better for the people in New York City. Cops like Brian are decision makers. Some decisions are small, some are more significant, some are life and death. But in every situation, cops must react. They cannot hesitate, because in each moment, so much is at stake. It's a tremendous weight to bear, knowing that your choices will directly affect the lives of others. But cops like Brian don't shy away from it. It's the very foundation of who they are and what they do. It's hard, challenging, stressful work. It's absolutely fundamental to every aspect of our society. Cops like Brian are proud to do it. It's the oath they all swore. It's the promise they made to every New Yorker and to themselves that they would dedicate their lives to keeping others safe. Brian was the one you were grateful to see arrive on the scene. He was the one you wanted beside you when decisions mattered most. And so last Tuesday night, Brian and his partner, Sergeant Matt Gorman, heard the familiar call for help, and they answered it. They made the decision to move toward the danger, to face it head on. They did so because people needed them. They did so because they made tough decisions others are unwilling or unable to do. They did so because they are NYPD cops. Being an NYPD cop is what Brian dedicated his life to. 18 years, 11 months, and 12 days. He spent his entire law enforcement career in the 102. You don't see that too much anymore. The 102 is a sprawling community in which virtually everyone who lives and works there knew him or had seen him. They liked him, and most importantly, they respected him. He fell in love with his community, and the community fell in love with him. He had to have loved it, as the mayor said, 70 miles each way. That's dedication. For nearly 19 years at the 102, Brian attended the roll calls, the birthday parties, the coffee runs, the weddings, and the funerals. And for nearly 19 years, he did the work. We honor Brian's memory when we pick up where he left off. We won't ever finish his work, but the respect is in the effort. It's in hearing the call for help and answering it. Brian took great pride in the job and approached all aspects of it seriously. But he was always ready with the joke, too. He had a knack for making you feel like his best friend. When new cops came into the command, they always talked to Brian, who made sure that they learned how to do things the right way. And if anyone had something difficult in their lives going on, they'd find Brian. Brian knew how to talk to people. More importantly, he knew how to listen. Maybe that's due to his mom, Linda, or positive grounding of his wife, Leanne, a nurse from Chicago. a police family he met on vacation in Las Vegas. They married in 2013. Husband and wife, a team that together worked hard to see others live their best lives possible. It's about being positive, being hopeful, and putting things right. Every cop tries to make things right when things have gone wrong. In the 102 squad, Brian was an investigator who specialized in robberies. Robberies are very hard cases to work. Victims are urged to remember faces they're desperate to forget, often glimpsed for just a terrified moment. Detectives knock on countless doors to find witnesses and to show countless pictures. A detective has to make connections. After these crimes, victims who were once confident find themselves suddenly afraid. There's a loss of trust, a loss of belief in their fellow human beings. But Brian was always able to really communicate and reach people. He was exceedingly good at his job and at making those connections, finding those links. He had close to 600 arrests, 500 of which were felonies. But it's only part of the story. In Brian's last case, which he and Matt were investigating last Tuesday night, man was walking home just after midnight on February 4th. Man had his headphones on, listening to music, and then someone grabbed him from behind and punched him in the face over and over. Bones were broken, his nose, his eye socket. His attackers took his wallet, his keys, his phone, and his dignity. He staggered to his feet, bloodied and astonished. And they came back. They knocked him down again, kicking him and punching him. They told him to unlock his phone so they could reset it. One suggested that they cut off his thumb so they wouldn't need his passcode. One of them put a gun to his chest. He unlocked the phone, and the group left again. How could this happen, he thought. Why did this happen? Shortly after that brutal robbery, the man met Detective Brian Simonsen. What police officers do is make victims feel that they're not alone, that the fight isn't over. Making connections with the evidence is just part of the job. Detectives also must reconnect victims with the hope that was stolen from them. The victim in this case said that Brian made him feel okay, that he was going to catch these guys. I'm sure the other people who had him as a detective had the same feeling. In addition to Brian, the man also had high praise for Sergeant Gorman, with whom he spoke almost daily about the case. One of the suspects from that horrific robbery was caught early in the day last Tuesday, and a tip came in that a second suspect from that robbery had been spotted. Brian and Matt immediately went out to look for him, no hesitation. While driving around, searching, doing what cops do, the call came over about the T-Mobile gunman. The victim in Brian's last case is a doctor. He works at Jamaica Hospital. Was on duty the night Brian and Matt were rushed there from the cell phone store. Well, he doesn't work in the ER. The doctor was able to check in on Matt as he was recovering from the surgery. He would have given anything to have been able to help Brian the way Brian had helped him. Just like that doctor, Sergeant Gorman, and all the police officers at that tragic shooting will carry this grief with them for the rest of their lives. But let me tell you something. Those cops responded to a call for help. They didn't hesitate, and they are not to blame. The only two people responsible for Brian's death, the only two, are the career criminals who decided to go to that store on Tuesday night and commit an armed robbery. Late last week, I read a newspaper profile of the suspect, the man who burst in wearing a mask, held innocent people at the end of a pistol they had every reason to believe was a real gun. The man who forced scared workers into a back room before filling a duffel bag with cash and other items. That front page article described the criminal as, and I'm quoting, "an eccentric man with a history of prior arrest for minor crimes." I'm not sure what city, what country the authors think they're in, but where New York City cops come from, 24 run-ins for offenses including armed robbery, impersonating a police officer or federal agent, stalking a judge, grand larceny and more, are decidedly not minor crimes. And I'd wager his victims didn't think so either. So I'd like to offer an alternative description of the 27-year-old felon. He's a criminal, he's a thief, and now he's responsible for Brian's death. I've said previously that police were never intended to rectify all of society's ills, and yet our perceived role in the world continues to expand. Hear me when I tell you this. We alone cannot solve the opioid crisis. We alone cannot overhaul the care and services afforded to those with mental health issues. We alone cannot prevent every conceivable crime that might be committed. Other forces must intervene. All of those things require the full and willing partnership of every member of the public, every resident, every worker, and every agency at all levels of government, every elected official. But today is about the ones who are making a difference, cops like Brian. So the next time you see the lights and you hear the sirens, take a moment to think about who answers those calls for help. Where are they going? What might await them? Take a moment to appreciate that these people, your neighbors, who are putting themselves in harm's way to keep you safe, they don't know you. They may never have seen you, never spoken to you, but they will do everything in their power to protect you. They will put your lives above their own. That's who they are. They are the very best among us. They are the NYPD. They are Detective Brian Simonsen. And they will always be there, fighting against violence, against brutality, against cruelty, and against anyone who wishes you harm. They do this for you. They do it for everyone you care about. They do it for Brian. One of the final tributes paid to Brian was the way his fellow detectives took over that brutal February 4th robbery case of his, working hard on it, even as they grappled with his loss. Since Brian's death, they've already made 2 additional arrests. Brian would have been proud to see that done. It is justice, and he was in the justice business. But what happened to Brian was not justice. It's a tragedy of the deepest, most painful kind. Why him? How could this happen? We will learn every possible fact and try to draw every appropriate lesson. But it won't be enough. It'll hurt forever. One day, not today, and not soon, when we think of Brian, we'll feel more than just the pain of his loss. To do that, we have to live by his example, because you know he'd want it that way. We'll never match the sacrifice made by Brian, but we can try to match his sense of service. We cannot match his courage. We can strive to match his devotion. To the men and women of the 102, and all members of the NYPD who bravely go out every day with the sole mission of fighting crime and keeping people safe. And it does take courage. Thank you for your dedication. Please don't ever forget why you chose to become police officers. Always remember who you are, what you do, and why you do it. Continue to be proud of that, and never forget that Brian lived to protect all New Yorkers, and his legacy protects us still. And this morning, that legacy expands as I promote Brian Simonsen to Detective First Grade. And Linda, and to all of Brian's loved ones, know this: our family is your family, and we will always be one. The NYPD will always be here for you. We pray that Brian now finds rest, and that you find solace and peace and strength to live the lives Brian fought to give us all. God bless Detective Brian Simonsen. God bless every member of the New York City Police Department who forever now carry on his most important work. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Sean Peterson to please come up.
Dear friends and family gathered here today, my name is Sean Peterson. I'm Brian's cousin. On behalf of our family, we would like to thank everyone for being here today to honor Brian. When I was first asked to speak today, I was worried I wouldn't be able to express the right words to honor his memory. We come from a small family, and the two of us were born a year apart. When we got together, we were pretty much inseparable. Whether playing sports or fishing, we did it together. At a young age, Brian seemed to have the ability to get us both in trouble, such as the time we left some stinky fish in his dad's garage. Still hear Uncle Paul yelling at us today. Many of you might not know, but Brian was also a great teacher as well. He was the one who first taught me how to ride a bike. By taught me, I mean he put me on his bike, gave me a push, and yelled, "Good luck." Still worked. You probably wouldn't be as surprised to learn that Brian wasn't the best of students. I remember that when he was 15, he paid his sister Melissa to write his school papers for him. Melissa was 2 years younger than him, and she still got him an A. The A set off a few red flags, and he got caught. From a young age, Brian lived his life to the fullest. It was a life of adventure and laughs. His infectious personality made you want to be around him. This oversized personality led his friends to start calling him Smiles. My cousin was always smiling, always trying to include everyone in his life. To those closest to Brian know that he didn't have it easy growing up. He faced several heartaches as a teenager. At the age of 15, he lost both his beautiful sister Melissa and his dad Paul within 6 months of each other. These devastating tragedies would have broken many a man, but not Brian. He had immediately assumed the role as man of the house and became the rock that supported our family. As a young teenager, he became the strongest person I knew, and still today. While going through what is unimaginable for most to comprehend, Brian still lived up to the nickname Smiles. He had an amazing gift to turn a bad situation good, to turn another sadness into joy and good, and laughter. And Linda, please know, Brian became the kind, nurturing soul he was because of you. That's who you are, and without your guidance and love, he would not have turned into the amazing man he became. He wouldn't be half the man. I would also like to speak about another amazing influence in Brian's life. Oh, Grandpa Vern. Vern is a World War II bombardier veteran, still going strong at 100 years young, who taught Brian the definition of courage, leadership, and strength. Grandpa, we thank you. On March 1st, 2000, Brian and I fulfilled our lifelong dreams together. We became part of New York's finest. Pretty safe to say the proudest day of both of our lives. As we started on life's journey, neither of us could have imagined the amazing relationships and bonds we formed over the next 19 years. These bonds of friendship and love are evidenced here today by the people sitting in this church and the thousands of brothers and sisters in blue grieving outside. This unbreakable bond is difficult to explain to someone who hasn't wore the shield, someone who isn't a cop. This bond was proven day in and day out as Brian drove 140 miles round trip to work, and he did it with a smile on his face. Over the course of his distinguished career, he had many opportunities to transfer to other commands. He always said no, because Brian loved the 102, and the men and the women of the 102 below his heart. And I know you loved him too. Brian loved being a police officer and was extremely proud to become a detective. He loved being a detective, but as he got older, there was still one thing missing from his life. That last missing piece of the puzzle. And that piece was Leanne. In September of 2011, Brian met his beautiful wife, Leanne, in what I'm sure we'd all agree is one of the most romantic places in the world, Las Vegas. Well, this is one of the few times what happened in Vegas didn't stay in Vegas. Brian came home from his trip and couldn't stop talking about the girl he met in Vegas. I remember my thinking in my head, Vegas, that's strike one. As we continued talking, I remember saying how crazy it was that he met a girl from around here all the way over there. Brian followed it up with a smile, of course. No, bro, she lives 12 hours away in Chicago. So the long distance, that was strike two. Well, that led to many flights and drives back and forth to Chicago. Like you said, no wonder going to the 102, 140 miles every day was nothing compared to traveling to Chicago. During Brian's time in Chicago, he fell in love with Leanne as well as her family. Unfortunately, there's no strike three. Brian knew he had found the one. Most importantly, the one his mom approved of. Leanne was a missing piece of the puzzle that completed Brian's life so totally and completely. We never saw him so more happy and fulfilled. Leanne, the one thing Brian's mom, my Aunt Linda, asked me to express to you today is how grateful she is that the two of you found each other. You made him so happy over the last 7.5 years. Our family is fortunate to have you in our family's lives, and you and your family in our lives. We love you, and thank you for showing our Brian so much love and support. Being an officer is not only what Brian loved to do, it's who he was. He was a great cop. It was in his blood, this calling that all of us who wear the badge share. A brotherhood we are fortunate enough to be a part of. I was writing this, I was trying to think what it really meant to be a great cop. Is it going after the bad and helping the good? Is it being a great leader? Is it being a strong shoulder to lean on, or a great listener to comfort another brother and sister in blue? Is it when chaos erupts and most run away from the danger and the few brave individuals run towards the danger? Well, Brian was all that and so much more. He ran in when everyone else was running out. Your death is not in vain. You died doing what you love to do. And Linda, Leanne, please know that Brian was the great man he was because of the both of you. You provided with him unconditional love and support. I leave you with a few words from Abraham Lincoln. And in the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's life in your years. Brian, you lived your life to the fullest, impacted all who have met you tremendously. We're the better for having known you. Let's honor Brian and celebrate his life, trying to follow his lead. Brian, we love you and miss you. You are truly one of New York's finest.
I'd like to invite Ricky Walters up.
Good morning. I guess I picked the wrong year to quit smoking cigarettes. For those who don't know me, my name is Ricky Waters. I've been Brian's partner in the 102 Detective Squad for the past 5 years. The 102 is a family, a brotherhood, and being partners with Brian was a family tradition. My cousin, retired Detective Kevin O'Hay, worked in the 102 Detective Squad. He worked in the 102 for 20 years, and the last 8 in the Detective Squad as Brian's partner. So it was only fitting, after Kevin retired, that I was given the privilege and honor of working with Brian as his new partner. Lucky him. Like all great partnerships, Brian and I couldn't have been more different. He was tall, good-looking, in shape, always in the gym, loved the Mets and the Islanders. Me, I'm short, weird-looking, smoked a pack and a half a day, and couldn't stand either of the teams that he loved. They better win this year, I'm telling you that right now. But our minds, our sense of duty, and our sense of humor made our partnership work. Brian was a great detective. That was clear to everyone. But he was an even better person. I share in the loss with everyone who knew him, but I'm sad for those who had yet to know Brian and witness his generous personality. Years ago, as I was going through a divorce, shock, I had no money, nowhere to live. Without hesitation, Brian told me, come live with him. Brian and Leanne were engaged at the time, and Leanne was still living in Chicago. Brian told me, don't think twice, just grab your things and come to my house. So I did. He took care of me for months, 6 to be exact. He gave me free room and board, and all the Bud Lights I could handle. And if you knew Brian, he could handle a few more than I could. When I finally moved out, he told me I had probably spent more money on gas driving back and forth from Riverhead to Queens than my entire divorce cost, and he was right. Brian was a true friend, never wanted anything in return other than to know that I was okay and back on my feet. Working with him was the best. He always had a smile on his face. He never complained about anything. and he was always up to roast who was ever in earshot of us. And that was pretty rough. To work in the 102 squad, you need to have a pretty thick skin. We would laugh every day to the point our stomachs would hurt. He loved all you guys very much. Brian worked hard, he played hard. He could have left many times, like his cousin said, to go work in a higher profile unit, but he would just tell me, bro, I love this place. I love you guys. Where else would I be? And of course, everyone who worked with him there felt the same. Leanne, he loved you so much. From the minute you two met, he knew you were going to be together. He would fly to Chicago any chance he got, and when I finally got to meet you, I knew why. I've never seen him so happy as the day of his wedding, and his nickname was Smiles, so you can imagine the joy he had on that day and how it overflowed into his marriage. I will miss the comfort of having Brian sitting across from me in my office. I will miss his infectious laughter and the way he lit up a room. I will miss our daily conversations, whether at work or home. I will miss my partner, but mostly I will miss my friend. Brian and Linda and your whole family, myself, the whole 102 precinct, the entire NYPD will always be here for you. For tears, for the solace, for remembrance, for laughter, and for smiles. This time is not going to be easy, but together we will get back to work helping the people of the city, because that's what we do. And eventually, we will get back to laughing and smiling the way Brian did. May God bless you. May God bless Detective Brian Simonsen. And may God bless the NYPD.
We're extremely grateful today that we have two bishops here with us today. Bishop Neil Tiedemann, who is representing Bishop DiMarzio from Brooklyn, and Bishop John Barris, who is the Bishop of Rockville Center, who would like to say a few words for us. Bishop, thank you.
With Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who was present at the viewing with Leanne on Monday, our Metropolitan, with Bishop DiMarzio represented by Bishop Neal, with all of these wonderful priests from the Archdiocese of New York, from the Diocese of Brooklyn, from the Diocese of Rockville Center, and our incredible ecumenical representatives and chaplains who we're so grateful for their presence today. We offer you our prayers and sympathy, Leanne and Linda and Barbara. Psalm 119 talks about that the Word of God is a light and lamp for our steps through life to eternity. One of the beautiful things about our wonderful Catholic faith and the scriptural texts that we share both as a Catholic Church and an ecumenical and interfaith community, is that the lives of heroic and noble and virtuous people are rays of light that shoot off of various biblical passages. Today we honor and we pray for the beautiful soul of Brian, whose life was an expression of so many biblical passages. The passage of concerning the Good Samaritan, who always went the extra mile. The tributes express that so beautifully. That was a common thread and theme. And so we give thanks for the wonderful, noble virtue and spirit of sacrifice that he lived. All of us give thanks for that wonderful spirit of the NYPD. We celebrated this funeral mass in the context of receiving the body and blood of Christ. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings, a passionate Catholic, once wrote a letter at the end of his life to his son, And he said these words, "My dear son, I put before you the one true thing to love on this earth, the body and blood of Jesus Christ. There you will find true romance, true honor, true glory, and the true ways of all your loves upon earth." The Catholic Mass is the unbloody renewal of Christ's sacrifice on Calvary. And when we embrace the mysterious power of the cross, Jesus leads us through the mysteries of our experiences of our lives on this earth. And so we open ourselves to the wonderful influence of Brian's life, the wonderful influence of the marriage he had with Leanne, the wonderful family life of the Simonsen life. We give thanks to God for that today.
Not that I want to be the last speaker, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank my brother chaplains and sister chaplain who are here today to represent New York, but also the chaplains of various other communities. I thank them for their concern and their love for Brian and for police in general. But the most important person I think that we have to thank is Father Mataloni, because he certainly opened up his home to us. We basically, as the Latin goes, Veni, Vidi, Vici, I came, I saw, and I conquered. Well, we came, we saw this beautiful church, and we took it over. Father Steve, thank you so much. And now I'd ask all members of the service to fall out and form up outside.
be afraid. You're not alone. Rest now. There's nothing to fear. You have a home waiting. In my Father's house, there are many rooms, ones prepared for you. Trust in God. Do not be afraid. For I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Trust in God, do not be afraid.
Forgive whatever sins he committed through weakness, and in your goodness, grant him everlasting peace. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In peace, let us take our brother Brian to his place of rest.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis
behalf of the New York City Police Department, Police Commissioner O'Neill, and the Simonsen family, we thank everyone for your show of sympathy and support. We are going to dismiss this part of the detail. You must exit the parking lot to the west and north. If you go south, we will see you on Thursday. Detail, dismiss.
Hold on.
There you go.
We've been watching the funeral service of NYPD Detective Brian Simonsen, who died by friendly fire last week while responding to a robbery in Queens. The 42-year-old, called lovingly by the nickname Smiles, spent all 19 years of his service with the NYPD in Queens. He is being remembered as a faithful son, husband, friend, and an animal lover. His wife is asking that all donations be made to the Healing Haven Animal Foundation in his honor. NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill also promoting Simonsen to the rank of first grade and saying they will continue in his honor by picking up where he left off and doing good. We'll be right back.